Alrighty, so we have Hermes and Hestia next. So Hermes, our god of movement. He's the only of the only of the Greek gods who can actually move through all three spheres, heaven, earth, and below. And then Hestia, who is fixed or stuck on basically in a central location, which is the home. So they sort of work as a natural pair to each other because one of the movement and one of being fixed. So we're going to begin with Hermes. So Hermes is the son of Maya, who is the daughter of one of the Titans, the daughter of the Titan. See if I can remember this. Maybe of Atlas, right? So this is Atlas's. So Hermes is Atlas's grandson. His Roman name, of course, is Mercury. He is a lot of things: boundary crosser, trickster, god of thieves and travelers, so trickster and boundary crosser, the messenger of the gods, the conductor of souls. He has lots of different roles. Again, one of the things that's most interesting about Hermes is his ability to cross boundaries that no other god can cross. Hades can't really, I mean, Hades doesn't ever go to Olympus. Or not, I mean, yeah. He has, or he usually, I'm trying to think if there already started him going to Olympus. I can't recall anything. If he does, he has to be asked to come there. Zeus doesn't go into the underworld. So you don't often see the ability to cross through this three planes of existence, but Hermes, of course, is able to do that. He lives on Olympus. He often brings messages to humans and gods on Earth. And as the conductor of souls into Hades, he goes into the underworld with fluidity. And that's the important thing, is his ability to do this with fluidity and naturally. He's also I should mention he's the inventor, also the inventor of the lyre, which we're going to talk about, which is actually Apollo's, sort of one of Apollo's main things, right? We've seen that already. So Hermes has three things, and every representation of Hermes, you usually see him with these three things. You have his petasus, his traveler's hat. So you're often going to see him with a hat. Sometimes it'll be like, if you look at the previous representation, it's a winged hat, but it's more often this traveler's hat that we see him here in this image. His tolaria, his winged sandals, which you can just sort of see the outline of the winged sandals here, and his caduceus, which is his wand. Now, I mentioned this when I talked about Apollo and Asclepius. Something that's interesting is very often we see there's this confusion between the caduceus of Hermes and the rod of Asclepius. So remember, Asclepius is the god of healing, where we have a singular snake crawling up a stick, where the caduceus has wings with two snakes. This is often how the caduceus is represented. This is a common representation of the caduceus. It's interesting, and so it's interesting when like a lot of like medical things will actually put the caduceus and not the rod of Asclepius, where Hermes isn't really associated with healing like Asclepius is. So you can, if you ever see a caduceus on something medical, you can chuckle and tell all your friends. There's an interesting little bit of trivia for you. So we see Hermes with these, and I would actually state that Hermes and Apollo and Artemis are usually the three easiest deities to identify. because you're always going to see Hermes with at least one, but usually all three of these things. So again, here we have a few more representations of Hermes. One on the left, we have him with his shoes, right? His winged shoes and his traveler's hat, also carrying this pouch, his quote unquote messenger bag. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, you should Google Hermes messenger bag and see what you get. You get some very beautiful bags, but not Hermes. Very often he's bearded, but sometimes he's not. So here we have this little bronze statue of Hermes where he is not bronze, but wearing his hat. Again, so here actually is a very famous representation of Hermes. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost certain this is the god Dionysus that he's holding. Usually when you see Hermes holding a baby, it's Dionysus. Representing this baby, Dionysus to Zeus. But again, we have the winged sandals, the hat with wings on it too. You can sort of see his caduceus sticking out here. All right. So I don't want to do this story just yet. So I'm actually going to move it. So you're going to see me actually move. There we go. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about his birth. There we go. Sorry. You have to see me move these around because I don't want to start this whole thing over again. So one of the things, especially that we know about Hermes from his birth, is that he already is we already start to see his attributes as a god, a boundary crosser, as a thief from the minute he is born. So we have sweet little baby Hermes, who is living in a cave. He hears these animals outside, and of course, even though he's a sweet little, just hours old baby, is able to get up. He sees these beautiful cattle of Apollo. He decides, I really like those. And so he goes and he devises a plan of how to steal Apollo's cattle. He does this by having them walk backwards into his cave, and then he fixes these things on his shoes that basically brush away his footprints as he's leading them. There's actually this old man who sees Hermes doing this, and he basically Hermes swears him to silence, but he can't keep his mouth shut. And eventually, when Apollo comes looking for his cattle, the old man tells Apollo what's happened, even though, as your book says, and as the myth sort of goes, Apollo already knows where they are. It's also part of this same story, which is in Homeric hymn number 4, that we see the invention of the lyre. The lyre, the L-Y-R-E, this musical instrument that we have here with a tortoise shell. So here we have it. He finds this shell. cuts these reed stalks, fixes them onto the shell, stretches cowhide onto the inside, right? Attaches the two arms, fastens a crossbar, stretches out some strings, and then he makes it play this wonderful music. So think like, this is probably more like the process for like the table guitar. I think that's what it's called. I don't know that much about music. I'll be honest. But so he creates this instrument out of tortoise shell. So back to the story. So because the lyre is gonna come in handy later in the story. Basically, Apollo wants Hermes to show him where these sheep are, and Hermes is, playing coy. I'm just a little baby. I can't do anything. And Apollo says, well, if that's the attitude you're going to take, then I'm just going to throw you right into Hades and that you become the god of little babies in Hades. Again, Hermes, I'm just a little baby. I couldn't do anything like that. So Apollo snatches him up and takes him to Olympus, where he's forced to testify before Zeus. Again, Hermes replied to Zeus, I'm just a little baby. I couldn't do it. He continues to lie. Zeus finally convinces or commands Hermes to tell Apollo where the cattle are, which he does. In reconciliation, Hermes gives his lyre to Apollo, and this becomes a signature instrument for Apollo. One of the things that he is, representations of Apollo are often identified as such because of the lyre. We have lots of different representations of the lyre. A lot of modern ones, it's more like a harp, but this is probably closer to what a lyre looked like. So here we have, again, from Homeric hymn, with his words, he held out the lyre, and Phoebus Apollo took it, and willingly handed Hermes the shining goad, which enjoined on him the care of cattle, which my son accepted gladly. So where we have Apollo as this sort of field hand deity, we have Hermes now being given the care of cattle. Anyway, so we have him gladly accepting this care of cattle. We also see Hermes create the panpipe. So it's really interesting that Hermes is the one who creates many of these musical instruments that would become associated with other deities and not himself. So often as a trickster, we see his association with Prometheus. So here at Homeric hymn 411, we see his association with fire. So he gathered a lot of wood and essayed the art of fire. So here we have Hermes bringing fire, and of course we all know that what happens. We have the association of fire with sacrifice, but we all know how men are able to get fire, of course, from the gods is through Prometheus. We also see a close association between Hermes and Odysseus. He, of course, warns Odysseus to not, to basically how to handle Circe, who is planning on turning him into a pig. Also, another role that Hermes has is he actually does help his father sleep with the bull Io. We've talked a little bit about Io, but Io is turned into a bull. Zeus rides her from Asia all the way over to Europe. Hera, still basically trying to thwart Zeus's plan, has her guarded by Argus, who has 100 pairs, or it's 50 pairs of eyes, 100 eyes total. Hermes is able to defeat Argus. It's why he actually gets the name Argiophontes, the Argos Slayer. And Zeus is able to sleep with Io. So we see him sort of taking part in Zeus's escapades. So this, because of this close association with Prometheus, this sort of gives me a chance to discuss Prometheus with to the class, because there is always a good place to introduce the idea of Prometheus. All right, we all know the story of Prometheus stealing fire from Zeus. So remember, Prometheus fights on the side of the Olympians when they fight. He's a Titan who fights on the side of the Olympians. So he is clearly in Zeus's good favor. In his good favor, but Prometheus also has a soft spot for humans. Humans, if we remember in like our Age of Men, I mean, a lot of the food just sort of like replicates itself early on, but eventually their fire is needed to cook food. Prometheus, like I said, feels bad for humans and steals that fire so that man can start cooking meat. Zeus punishes the world for getting fire from Prometheus by the creation of Pandora. And it's actually, I put it here with Prometheus, but it's actually Epimetheus who Pandora is married to. So basically Zeus, he creates Pandora. We have Pandora's, and inside, of course, Pandora's box is all of the bad things in the world. She's given this box and told, of course, you cannot open it. Zeus then gives Pandora, or says it's okay for Prometheus to marry Pandora. And Prometheus, whose actually name literally means forethought, thinks better of it. His brother, twin brother, Epimetheus, whose name is Afterthought, doesn't think that far ahead. He sees Pandora, she's beautiful. What's that pesky box anyway? and he decides that he will marry Pandora. While together, they decide, oh, maybe we will just open this box. They open it, and of course, they're only able to shut it as which human emotion? You guys know the human emotion that is trapped? It's hope. Hope of men. Again, Prometheus is also part of another myth which ties into Hermes as a trickster. In the Hades discussion, I was mentioning how chthonic gods are given different sacrifice than Olympian and Olympian gods. How the chthonic gods is the blood. Well, for the Olympians, they want sacrifices. So they want men to offer sacrifices, and they want the flames and the smoke to come up to Olympus. Prometheus tricks the gods. Oh, you don't want that pesky meat. You want the smoke. You want the sizzle. And so when the Greeks offered sacrifice, it was the fat, the gristle, the bones, and the skin. That was for the gods. The meat was for men. And so Prometheus tricks the gods into accepting this compromise. Of course, it's because of this that Prometheus is forced for eternity to suffer eternal torment. Excuse me. Of course, his torment, as we know, is that every day he's chained to a rock, and an eagle comes every day and plucks out his liver. It regrows every day. So here we have Prometheus, double punishment, right? Men are punished for Prometheus stealing fire and giving it to men. And I should also mention, Prometheus is sort of like as a titan over fire. So theoretically, it's sort of his to give, but that's a whole other thing. And then because of this, the inferior sacrifice is really why Prometheus is recalled, right? And brought, and basically recall. That's a terrible word for it. Recall. I'm sorry. Why he's punished for eternity. I don't know what that word that came out of my mouth was. Apologies. Okay, so as a messenger, like I said, as a messenger, we know that he's often asked by Zeus or the other deities to relay messages to humans. So here we have Hermes on the right. We have him communicating with Odysseus, who I should also mention often wears this traveler's cap. Odysseus, even though Athena is his patron goddess, he has a lot in common. He's a descendant of, what am I talking about? He's a descendant of Hermes, Odysseus is. Right? I think Hermes is his great grandfather. I could be wrong, but still, there is still a close association between Odysseus and Hermes. But in the Odyssey, we actually have Odysseus being told by Hermes how to overcome Circe. Sorry, this Hermes thing is sort of bothering me. Yeah, Odysseus is the great grandson of Hermes. There we go. I thought so. Anyway, sorry, that was going to bother me. So yeah, so we have again association with Hermes with Odysseus. So we have from Odyssey 58 or 5:28-32. He spoke and said to Hermes, his loyal son Hermes, seeing that you're the other times our messenger, declared to fair Hetrus. Oh, I'm sorry. This is this is after. This is not on the island of Circe. This is basically at the beginning of the Odyssey. Of course, it begins with this debate between the gods whether Odysseus should finally get to go home. We see some of his travels, and then Hermes is sent to order that it's time for Odysseus to return back to Ithaca. And it's there in book 5 that we see he finally gets to return home. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little scatterbrained right now. I hope that's clear. Hope what I just said is clear. All right. The boundary crosser. Like I said, Hermes is the only god that can move between sky, earth, and underworld. And because of this, we actually have his epithet Hermes Psychopompos, as the escorter of souls to the underworld. He, along with Hypnos and Thanatos, Thanatos is on the right, Hypnos of sleep and death, move souls into the underworld. So again, a boundary crosser. But he's also, so he's a boundary crosser, but he's also, and this is really interesting, like just like with Apollo, right, where he's a bringer of plagues but a curer of plagues. Hermes is not only a boundary crosser, but there are these things called herms, which are literal markers of boundaries of property. In Athens, they were crossroads. And it was literally, I mean, it was a statue with the head of Hermes at the top, but one of these long statues, usually with a phallus on it. Here, actually, we have some different representation of Hermes, of these winged chicken penises. But these marked, again, the boundaries, especially in Athens. It's that there's so it's what's really interesting is before the Athenian Sicilian expedition, which took place from 415 to 413 BC. The night before the Athenian army was going to sail to Syracuse, it's said that someone ran through the city of Athens and knocked the penises off all of the herms in the city. This is, this is a huge, like, there's basically this is considered to be a bad sign. And it was, I mean, it was taken really seriously and as a bad omen for the expedition. Actually Alcibiades, who is a student uh, of Socrates, is blamed. Oh, I should mention Alcibiades, who is the head of the expedition, is said to have been the one who's responsible. He and his friends. They, of course, go to Syracuse and are defeated. And some people have argued that this is one of these sacrileges, and it's that because Alcibiades, one of the students of Socrates, is the one who's said to have been responsible for this. It's one of the reasons why Socrates is brought up on charges of sedition. So again, so what's interesting is we have in all of these myths, we see the fluidity of Hermes, and yet these physical representations become these very fixed things. They set the boundaries, but it also has to do with luck. I mean, there's lots of things wrapped up in these Hermes, the Hermi here. All righty. So we're going to conclude, this is going to conclude Hermes, but now we're going to talk about Hestia, who of course is the eldest daughter of Kronos and Rhea. Hestia, one, there aren't a lot of depictions of Hestia. She becomes this goddess of the hearth, an important part of the household, right? Not only did it warm the household, but this is where where food was cooked. She's a goddess of chastity. Her Roman equivalent is Vesta, which she does become a very important deity for the Romans. But she's prominent for both the Greeks and the Romans. Every Roman household would have a hearth, but every Roman and Greek, this is the same, so both Greek and Roman households had a hearth, but so did every single city had a communal hearth. And she was the goddess of both of those. Cities like Rome, there was the temple of the Vestal Virgins. There are temples to Hestia that carry these eternal flames that are constantly being, I mean, they are literally eternal flames in these cities. Hestia also calculates into the rights of the legitimacy of children, because it's at the hearth. So I put this baby acceptance ritual. But basically, when a new baby was born, there was this ritual that involved the mother and the father walking around the hearth of the home. The mother, they would circle the hearth so many times, the mother would act like she was going to give the baby to the father, and eventually, after walking up so many times, she would give across the hearth, give the baby to the father. And the father would basically have to choose if he took the child into his arms, that baby was considered legitimate as a citizen, the son of the father. But we do have instances where they don't take the child, they don't accept the child as their own. And in that way, the baby might suffer death. Most definitely, the mother of that child would suffer penalty of some sort. Okay. So here is our Homeric hymn 29. This is the whole Homeric hymn. Hestia, you that are in the high dwellings of all, Both immortal gods and men who walk on earth have been assigned an everlasting seat as the privilege of seniority and enjoy a fine honor and privilege, for mortals have no feast without you, where the libation poured does not begin by offering honey sweet wine to Hestia in the first and last place. And you, Argus Slayer, Christus Hermes, son of Zeus and Maia, messenger of the blessed ones, gold wand, giver of blessings, be favorable and assist together with Hestia, whom you love and revere. For both of you dwell in the fine houses of men on earth, and friendship towards each other, fine supports of the house, and you attend intelligence and youth. I salute you, daughter of Kronos, and you too, gold-winged Hermes. And I will take heed both of you, and for others sing. So again, there is this close association where Hermes is a boundary crosser. He also does stand to represent a certain type of boundary. Hestia always represents this physical manifestation in the home. And it is unfortunate because a lot of times Hestia, when you name off the 12 Olympians, Hestia is the one left off that list. But Hestia is pretty cool, especially, like I said, for the Romans, where it's actually of all of, so this is actually the part of the house of the Vestal Virgins. So in Rome, they would actually, women would be given basically a priesthood, if you will, but they were the ones made to be Vestal Virgins. These statues there are actually of the most famous of the Vestal Virgins. And these usually would come from, these Vestal Virgins would come from aristocratic families, and a lot would really go into, a lot of training, a lot of heartache would go, heartache, what am I talking about? A lot of training. Oh, let's just act like I'm thinking of something completely different. This was a great honor for Roman women. We have lists of them. We know that every year, every single Vestal Virgin is named in the records, and they basically held places of prominence at events, at public events, and things like that. And so it's in a lot of ways, it was becoming a Vestal Virgin. Some would remain Vestal Virgins their entire life. It would be a way of having prominence in a city that was mostly dominated by men. Anyway. All right, so that's it. I do apologize. Sometimes when I get on sort of like a little roll, my brain wanders a little bit. So I apologize if that happened a few times in this lecture. Not really sure what was going on with that. So anyway, that's all I have for Hermes and Hestia. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, if part of this didn't make sense and you want to tell me that it didn't make sense, do that. Anyway, I will end here and I'll catch you next time. Bye.